Hello, welcome to Ethico89's Advanced Generator tutorial. In this video you will learn how to make the heat exchanger, also known as the steam producer, the Syngas producer, the steam turbine, and the gas turbine, and also learn about some things that are nice to have for your turbines. In advanced generators, the heat exchanger creates steam for the steam turbine, and the Syngas producer creates syngas for the gas turbine. Personally, I would recommend the Syngas producer because it requires less materials and is easier. For the heat exchanger, you will need at least one heat exchanger, one fluid output and input valve, a heat exchanger controller, and an item output port to output the excess obsidian. For the Syngas producer, you'll need a Syngas producer controller, a fluid intake and output valve, an item input port to input any item that has a carbon value, and then a ratio of 5 mixing chambers to 1 heating chamber if you don't want to add steam to your setup. The steam turbine requires at least 1 to 50 turbines, either one works, a type of energy output, the steam turbine controller, and a fluid intake valve. The gas turbine requires 1 to 50 turbines, either or, a type of energy emitter, a gas turbine controller, and a fluid intake or gas intake valve. The gas intake valve would be more for mechanism, and this would be more for almost everything else. The nice to haves for advanced generators would be a power capacitor to store more energy in your turbine, a fuel tank to store more gas in your gas turbine, and the fuel air mixer and gas mix compressor for your gas turbine. The gas mix compressor requires the fuel air mixer to work, and when you have both, it increases the efficiency to 185%, which is really good. Before learning advanced generators, you should learn that some fluid pipes won't connect to the fluid output valve. For example, the superlaminar fluid duct or any fluid duct from thermodynamics or Ender.io. You will need something like a fluid router so it actually connects, but mechanical pipes from Mechanism and fluid cables from Cyclic all work fine. Up first is a very simple Syngas producer and gas turbine setup. So for the Syngas producer, we have the controller, the output, 1 heating chamber, 5 mixing chambers, a fluid input where we have a dense infinite water source for infinite water, an item input port, which is inputting a lot of wood, and it'll use 15 carbon per tick, and you could see how much carbon one wood block has because it says carbon value is equal to 1600. This will self-throttle itself once it gets full. Then we have the gas turbine controller, which requires the fluid intake, gas turbine, the fuel and gas mix compressor, a turbine and output. One of those 1 to 5 Syngas producers will create enough to power more than one of these Enderium turbines. Up next we got a simple steam turbine and heat exchanger setup. So first off, the fluid intake valve is inputting water and lava created by this lava fabricator. You need the heat exchanger controller and at least 1 heating chamber with an item output port, and the item output port will output the obsidian. And every millibucket of steam you produce, you'll produce exactly double the amount of RF. So once again, you're outputting it, and then it'll come over here, and it's 42, and it's about double, 85. It's basically a fluid intake, steam turbine, and then the output, and then it's being trashed right now, so there's really no use for it. Up next we have a syngas producer, but with no heating chamber. Instead there's a heat exchanger, which is making steam and inputting it into the syngas producer. So now instead it's using steam and I think less carbon, and it's creating the same amount of fuel that could power more than one enderium turbine for the gas turbine. Gas turbines in this mod don't only need syngas to run, they could also run using fuel from stuff like mechanism or thermal expansion. There's also many other things like endurio, but I think I'll put that in the description. This one has liquid ethylene in it, and it only uses 0.05 millibuckets per tick to make 500 RF. Meanwhile, this one has gasoline in it, and it's using 0.2 millibuckets to make 500 RF per tick. Here we have a max size steam turbine. This one is producing 25,000 RF per tick, and is consuming exactly 12,500 millibuckets per tick. This heat exchanger setup, you need 3 complete heat exchangers, each with 50 each, and then a smaller one with only 9 each. And then this also requires a ton of lava and a ton of water. So this is not recommended by me. But if you have a ton of lava and water, go for it. This is a maxed out syngas turbine. Once again, it has all enderium turbines, and also the fuel air mixer and gas mix compressor. This requires only 3 heating chambers and 15 mixing chambers, and will use a lot of wood. It also requires a little bit of water too, but not that much. A few of these dense infinite water sources should suffice. And finally, best for last, the final thing, this octuple turbine setup running off one electrolytic separator making hydrogen. So first, you want to make 8 or more maxed out gas turbines with the gas mix compressors and whatnot, and the gas intake valves. Then you want to get your electrolytic separator and attach them all using ultimate pressurized tubes. You then want to attach all of them with the cryostabilized flux ducts and attach them straight to here so they're powering it. But this isn't going to work on its own. You have to give this a little bit of power first, then it'll do its loop and become infinite power. This, if you follow it, will lead to this draconic evolution, and it's making 200,000 RF per tick, and right now we have 939 trillion RF stored, and all of that's being powered by this. These creative energy cubes don't have this ball on top, so it can't be working. The only way of input is just this, and 25,000 times 8 is equal to 200,000, so you get the gist. It's kinda simple. Okay, that's pretty much it for advanced generators. If you think the video is good, like, and if you want to see more, then you should subscribe to see more of our content. Anyway, see ya.